Welcome to the Road of Life podcast, the show for married entrepreneurs who want to build a thriving marriage and a thriving business. We're your hosts, Meredith and Craig, relationship experts and entrepreneurs ourselves. We know firsthand that your business will only grow as strong as your marriage does.
On this podcast, we share real stories, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you strengthen your relationship, fuel your business, and build a life you love together. Let's dive in.
Rob Tracz is a high-performance coach, keynote speaker, host of the Surviving the Side Hustle podcast. As the founder of Prime Performance Coaching, he helps high-achieving professionals and entrepreneurs develop the resilience, clarity, and consistency needed to perform at their best, personally and professionally.
In this episode, Rob gets vulnerable and talks about his hard-earned lessons from neglecting relationships early in his entrepreneur journey and how he helps new entrepreneurs avoid the same mistakes. You can also hear me absolutely butcher the pronunciation of Rob's last name. As a reminder, it's Tracy. Welcome, Rob Tracz, to the Road of Life podcast.
We're super excited you're here, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here as well.
Well, no further ado, let us know. Tell everybody, what is it exactly that you do and how did you get to this point? Because I'm sure it was smooth and easy.
Yeah, of course. Super smooth and super easy. Well, so I guess to start off, I'm a high performance coach and I work with a lot of side hustlers or solopreneurs who are still kind of juggling that 9-to-5 lifestyle, maybe a personal life and a bunch of other things and trying to just create momentum and stay afloat and go from that kind of struggling and stagnant kind of situation to more of a momentum flowing and kind of get back to real life kind of mode and mentality. Yeah. Background, I'm strength and conditioning. Sports has always been a really big gateway for me for personal development. And as a young kid, my parents got divorced when I was about 5 or 6, or maybe it was 7. And that caused my mom, my sister, and myself to travel across state line. We were about 3.5 to 4 hours away from where I was born and kind of grew up. And that came with a lot of challenges because we weren't really locked into one spot. As you guys know about traveling, and it's difficult to make friends in one location when you're new. And it's even harder to maintain friends when you move the following year and you're constantly on the go. So as a young kid, I kind of kept to myself and found myself playing like video games and comfort food and all this other stuff. And it wasn't until we finally found a small town called Highland that we eventually decided to make our home. And from there, I met this younger kid named Sean, who became one of my best friends. And through Sean, he was cool because he liked a lot of stuff that I liked that was kind of nerdy and dweeby, but at the same time, his dad and himself also had a very athletic background. And his dad was the youth football coach and encouraged me to come out to playing sports. And that's really where I dipped my toe and got started in my whole personal development world and kicked everything off.
That's interesting. Hearing your story about moving around and keeping to yourself, and I relate so heavily to that because it's the same for me. My dad was in the Canadian military, so we bounced around so much. We moved every couple of years, so I feel exactly what you're talking about in that. Being the new kid every few years and trying to make friends, and I also trying to fit in and assessing who's who in the zoo kind of thing. And then who do I have to be to fit in to survive in this new environment? And then for me, it was well, I'm constantly portraying what I think all these people need me to be, but I'm not actually being myself. And so there was always this disconnection of who I was. And I never really truly felt like I belonged anywhere. And so I totally resonate with that story. And it's interesting too with your background in sports and how that kind of helped you gain a little bit of confidence and start to make the friends and things. Very similar to me. I think sports is a huge game changer for kids to get into a comfort zone and build that confidence.
Community,
it's really cool.
too.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. That first day of football practice, I was so out of place myself. I learned these 2 very important lessons there. So one was I saw that you can't wear jeans to football practice. You need to wear athletic wear. So that was a valuable lesson to learn. And then the second thing, like you said, was I saw a lot of the other popular kids who were connecting with everybody. They seemed to get through practice and do everything so smoothly. They were confident. They were strong. They felt like they were in the right place. And while I was on the outside, I realized that hey, if maybe I start to kind of do some of these warm ups and some of these things on my own at home, maybe that'll make me stronger so that I can continue to play. And then that did steamroll into more confidence, more playing time, and more friends on the team and such, and better grades and having to take care of stuff and learning how to prioritize. And yeah, it really just kicked forward. So exactly, sports, community, confidence, all of that.
Yeah.
Did you find you, similar to Craig, had that sort of internal battle of who I actually am on the inside versus who I think I need to be able to fit into this group or this world or this school or this, this collection of human beings that I want to feel like I'm a part of? Did you also feel that internal battle, or were you more of, I'm going to go home, I'm going to practice my stuff, and I'm going to show back up, and I'm going to work on the stuff that will allow me to actually feel like I belong because I will be the person on the inside that I'm showing on the outside? Which way did you flip?
Yeah, I think, well, I think it was a heavy mix of both. I think it definitely saw a lot of that, like, okay, well, how do I kind of fit into this? Like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I want to kind of feel myself into this kind of like team. And that took some time. And I think kind of the more that I would continue to work on myself and get into better positions on the team and socially, I guess I could say, that gave me more confidence to kind of be more of myself. And then I think through life, you just kind of eventually build up and create like a new identity for yourself. And I think that's kind of what I ended up doing, where I could kind of fit into a lot of different buckets or positions, I guess, on teams and in social circles.
Well, it's interesting because through our entrepreneurship journey, we've done a lot of personal growth because it just kind of seems to go with it's part of the package. One of the things I learned early in this journey that I did not know was we get to decide who we are. We get to decide who we want to be, the identity that we hold. Like, I always thought growing up, I was who I was. Like, I was raised a certain way. I was smart. I got good grades. I fit in this little box, and that's who I was. And it was just sort of preordained or something. Like, it was predetermined. Like, since I was a kid, this is who I was. And it really wasn't until like my late 30s that I realized, wait, whoa, we get to decide who we want to be and how we want to show up. Like, it sounds ridiculous looking back, but it like completely shifted the ground beneath my feet that I get to decide who I want to be, the person I want to be, like the attributes that I have, the decisions that I make, the things that I do. Those are all pieces of me deciding who I want to be. Like, it totally like shifted my reality. It sounds like maybe you got there a little earlier than I did.
Yeah, I feel like for myself growing up, I would try to mimic or imitate a lot of different people or role models that I wanted to be like, I guess. So at a young age, kind of getting into things, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be like cartoon characters and video game people and things like that. And then as I got introduced to sports, it was like mimicking the different players. And like, obviously, as a little kid, you're running around with like professional athlete jerseys all the time and acting like them. And I think some of that kind of molded into some of my personality. And I would take on some of those roles like, okay, I want to be like this person or that person. And then even like singers like Nelly, I heard he used to do like 300 push-ups every morning. And I was like, oh, all right, well, if he's doing that, I could get close to doing that. So then I could be successful and strong like him. So then those are kind of things that I started to adopt for myself, and then beginning to kind of craft or sculpt a lot of the early habits and routines that I created for myself.
So sports obviously is a natural kind of, to your point, you're seeing, okay, if these kids are doing this and they're successful, this is what I need to do. And Nelly and all the people that were doing things that you deemed as successful that you wanted to be doing. How did you make the transition from kind of sports into high performance coaching, or like that? I'll just let you answer. Well, I won't make the answer up for you.
Yeah, just like a switch. I just flipped it, and one day I was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess to kind of like preface how I switched into it, sports became kind of like you had mentioned, community. So the sports teams that I played was essentially the family that I was kind of searching for. I was the older sibling, and my mom eventually remarried, and then she had she had another child, which is my half brother. And when the marriage that she got into, I had an older stepbrother. So I went from oldest to like oldest that was kind of not as much attention as my younger sister, to then I was the middle child, to then I was like the middle oldest child. And then my mom ended up getting divorced, and then I became the oldest again. So I was pulling on all these different roles in my family. On the sports team, though, there's a lot more structure. Like I got placed in like a leadership type position. Football, wrestling, and lacrosse, I understood what I was doing. I was always that kind of like captain, role model type of figure. And that allowed me to kind of hone that in and treat my sports teams as more of my family. I would see them a lot more at school, after practice, and then I'd only go home to my real family in the evenings, and then rarely on the weekends because I'd be out with friends and things like that as well. And that grind of working together really allowed me to kind of push to the next level. Going into college, first year as a freshman, I played football at a a state college in New York. And from there, it was not the same community because I went from like a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a slightly bigger pond. And it was like too much for me. And then I ended up losing that community, that family aspect of football. So after that first year, I shifted over to rugby, which was a little less serious, but it was still that camaraderie. We still were very competitive, working together. The teamwork was awesome. And through that, it allowed me to kind of continue to develop that social aspect. Studying exercise science for my undergrad really allowed me to kind of continue to hone what taught me early stages of success. So hard work, grit, like nutrition, taking care of myself. What are the inputs that I'm putting in? And then from there, it made an easy transition into strength and conditioning, where after grad school, I had spent about 10 years as a strength and conditioning coach, really grinding and building my book of business up to the point where I was working 50, 60 hours, 70, sometimes 70 hours a week, like anywhere from 8 to 15 hour days, 7 days a week. And I did that for almost 200 weeks in a row. So it was roughly like almost 3 years, 3.5 years. In that time period, I only knew what made me successful at that time, which was hard work and grit. And I couldn't realize that I was just hitting my head against the wall. And as I was doing that, everything else around my world started falling apart. The girl that I was dating broke up with me because I didn't have time for her. My friends stopped calling me because I was too busy working all the time. And I wore that badge of like a badge of honor of constantly working. And I kept pushing everybody away while I was really seeking more like attention, but I was like pushing everyone away and eventually not even seeing my family on the holidays. And the worst thing was losing my father to pancreatic cancer and regretting not spending the time that he had in that limited window. And reflecting on that, normally I would have considered to like change things right then and there, but I just buried myself back in that work for about another year until one empty weekend where a lot of my clients were away, and I was able to sit and reflect and say, hey, this is a life that I don't want to be living. I don't know exactly what it is that I do want to be doing, but I know it's not just squats and deadlifts every single day. I have a real heavy passion for coaching. It's really helped me with a lot of positive mentors and coaches I've had in my life. So I know it's something about that. And then that began a journey of trying to figure out what is this thing that I eventually create called Prime Performance. But that was a long process because I was afraid to lose that identity as a strength and conditioning coach because of all the accolades and certifications that I had. At the same time, I was trying to get into something else. So a long-winded answer to your question, but it was a lot of process of trying to figure out, okay, this is something similar to what I want to do, but it's not quite there yet. Let me keep kind of digging and digging and digging. And eventually being able to reflect on it now, I couldn't have hopped right into what I'm doing now because I had to go through that struggle. I had to go through that process. I had to realize who I was going to be able to help. And it was me in that stage where I was trying to transition out and looking for some kind of a side hustle to replace what I was doing.
It's so true, isn't it? That like you look back and you're like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, but it wasn't what I was meant to be doing then. I needed to go through all of that to become the person that I am today so that I can now do what I'm meant to be doing. And so it's just a really cool, we see it all the time. And it's just another really great example of having to become that person to get into the role that you're meant to be doing in serving the people that you're meant to be serving. There was a lot to unpack there, a lot to unpack. One of the things that I wanted to go back to was because hard work and grit has come up a few times. That's something that's obviously like it's in you. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I think going back to like the youth football, like really just kind of pushing and trying and learning that you can accomplish a lot more than what you think you can when you're first getting out there. And you build that grit, you build that confidence to kind of keep pushing through by successfully completing smaller challenges. So whether that's breaking it down into like, okay, I'm going to try to do like 5 push-ups today, or I'm going to have for other businesses, maybe like, okay, I'm going to do 5 reach outs today, cold DMs, or I'm going to post 1 time a week or whatever it is. And then you get into a rhythm with that and you can kind of build off of that. You could push forward. And then once you have a couple of those wins under your belt, you can begin to predict the future, or at least pretend to, and say, hey, if I can continue pushing, I know that there is a reward at the end of this hard work. And I think that's where grit really comes from, is knowing that you have a little bit more in the tank, even when you don't really want to, because there's this reward waiting for you.
Yeah, very cool. Like knowing that it's all for something. When you expend this energy, when you do the hard work, and it's important, I guess, to have that vision, that why, that dream future, that thing that you're building towards is important to have that, so that when you're doing the push-ups that you do not want to be doing, you vision like, yeah, but I'm going to have the abs, or I'm going to have the healthy body, or I'm going to live to be 120, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day with the push-ups, right?
And it sounds a lot like momentum, like the discipline, which is, you said hard work and grit, but I wrote down from what he said before was discipline. Like
Yeah.
you seem to have really dialed in discipline as a skill for you that has brought you to momentum, and momentum is what continues to carry you, like those consistent daily actions that you talked about, like, whatever they are for you or your business, your health, whatever your thing is that you're working on. What are those bite-sized chunks that you can do, that will get you where you want to go, that you just keep doing even when you don't feel like doing it? And that discipline of doing it when you don't feel like it builds momentum, and momentum is what kind of, once that starts, then it becomes a little bit easier to continue. So it sounds like momentum is sort of that secret sauce that you need to use the hard work and grit to build, to kind of like
Get the ball rolling.
the ball rolling downhill.
Yes, exactly.
Probably want to go back again to all the things to unpack. It sounds like you had a significant wake up call in your strength and conditioning, with all the relationships and the impacts on your relationships in your life. And you went through sort of a reinvention, like when the time was right. Like, you said, I could have probably done it right then and there, but I wasn't meant to. Like, I needed to continue on for a little bit longer to learn whatever the things are that you needed to learn to get you to the point that you were ready to actually lean into that reinvention. What was what was the biggest lesson that you have taken from what I know had to have been an incredibly difficult period of time for you? What is the thing that you've taken from that with you forward, like the good that you took from that you take into your future?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think I learned was the importance of being able to slow down and reflect more consciously. Because I was in strength and conditioning, grinding all those hours, I lacked a lot of that awareness. I call that my robot mode. And robot mode itself isn't necessarily bad or evil. It's sufficient. You get things done that you want to get done. You get the tasks completed. You get the goals achieved. You move it forward in some kind of capacity. The problem, though, becomes when you get stuck there for too long and you don't flip out and go back into human mode, where there's emotion and feeling and life and people and connection. And as long as you can switch back and forth, and you have that capacity or that awareness to do that, you can continue to move forward with momentum and achieve better and bigger things, like impact and better results. But lacking that awareness, you can only go so far. And that's where hitting your head against that wall and stalling things out and slowing yourself down kind of comes into play.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh, I love that, the human mode versus robot mode,
Yeah.
and finding that balance. And that's the big lesson. I've never heard it explained that way,
Yeah,
but it's
I
actually
like
a
that
really
too.
cool explanation for it. Yeah.
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 So I've got a question. I want to go way back actually to your original conversation, your original answer about your clients, and how you help them build up their side hustle while balancing the 9 to 5, balancing the relationships in their life. Like, it sounds like you've applied a lot of lessons from your experience
Yeah.
into what you're doing. What are the most common challenges, obstacles that your clients run into when they're trying to sort of build up the side hustle, which I assume for most of them is their path to freedom eventually, whatever the freedom looks like for them? What are the most common challenges that you coach your clients through when they're trying to build this part of their life?
Yeah, I think one of the most common challenges, because I heard you guys actually mentioning it there a couple of times, is that balance. And I think a lot of people come into it thinking that there is a balance, that they're going to create something where they can have work 50% of the time and then personal life 50% of the time. And there are going to be certain times where you might have that, but more often than not, you're not going to be in balance. The idea, though, is to continue to have that awareness, right? So, like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a season for X amount of weeks or months or days that I'm really going to grind. I'm going to put it in robot mode and I'm going to put the grind down hard. But after that, I need to have the discipline, the system, the awareness to then flip back into human mode so that I can recover and plan and bring in new creative ideas and strategies to then reflect on, hey, how did this robot mode sprint actually turn out? Did I hit the goals that I wanted to? Yes. So if not, what needs to be changed? And you need that little bit of down period to, one, connect with people you care about and enjoy life, but then also creativity and planning for the next sprint season when it comes into it. And everybody's different. So they're going to have different lengths for these different seasons. There's going to be those sprint slow and then the steady times as well. And being aware and paying attention to all the different inputs and stimuli from yourself, people around you, business numbers, all those things, that's what's going to help you kind of stay dialed in. So a lot of people can make those adjustments.
Yeah, so true, right?
We're in a little bit of robot mode right now.
Yeah, we're in robot mode for sure. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people do have this idea, and when we say balance, we don't necessarily mean like 50%, 50%, or like 25, 25,
Right. It's
25,
not a
25
balanced
in all
scale.
the different areas of your life. Make sure you're taking care of your health and your relationships, maintaining them while you're still in a busy season and doing those things. But then when that busy season comes down in work, then you have more time to spend on the relationships and the health. And so,
Pendulum.
yeah, it's always a swinging, a moving target. And there's always going to be seasons for different things. Like in the summer, maybe you take a week and go on a vacation and enjoy your friends and your family. And when you get back, maybe it's head down and into the next project. But it's so true that I think a lot of people, when they get into entrepreneurship, they don't really quite understand or make that connection right away of like, this is way different than I thought. Like, entrepreneurship's not for the faint of heart. I don't think people quite grasp that. I know I didn't when I first got into it. I did not realize what I was getting into. And then it was like, oh, okay. Got smacked in the face a couple times and you're like, okay, eyes open now.
Yeah.
2x4 between the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. A lot of people, same thing. We all know that entrepreneurship, starting a business, it's going to be hard work, but we fail to understand how much hard work that's actually going to be. And then at the same time, once things start to get challenging, you've got like today's hustle culture just chirping in your ear, like, oh, like sleep when you're dead, like you got to keep going, like only the strong survive. And then it's like, oh, it's great. And then you're like hitting that red line for your exhaustion and burnout. And you're like, oh, let me keep going. And a lot of people fall into that pitfall.
So, what's your take? Because I know something I've struggled with, and I know a lot of other people in my circle have struggled with, all the way along up until this entrepreneurship sort of personal growth / journey. For most of my life, rest was hard because like my value was so tied to my productivity. Like in my corporate days, even in college, like my productivity was so tied, like how I delivered, how I performed was so tied to my self-worth that if I'm resting, if I'm taking a day and vegging on the couch or like that is not productive, and therefore I am not worthy. I didn't earn that. Like my self-worth is so tied to it that it's really hard to do that. And so what's your take on rest, productivity, recharge, burnout? Like how does all that and still trying to build a business, right? Because there is still a shit ton of work required to do that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I will kind of start on my opinion on like kind of why like you might be going through some of that and why I definitely go through it and maybe why a lot of other people do it as well. I think it's kind of how we are rewarded as younger kids. I know for me specifically, if I got 100 and something, my mom would give me either extra allowance or candy or a toy or something like that. So then I would associate my value with that grade. And then through school, if I was struggling with something, I would begin to notice like, hey, I'm not going to be able to get that 100. Why even bother on that? And then that would lose out effort on trying to put through those. And you tie yourself and your value to the outcome instead of the process. Whereas like like, for example, a lot of my clients used to be weight loss clients and they're trying to lose 10 pounds, but they look on the scale the next day and they're the same spot that they were. They get discouraged. Oh, I might as well just go and grab some extra snacks or whatever. But instead of shifting it to the focus of the process, like going to the gym or going for the walk and tracking those and rewarding the effort instead of the outcome. That's my like opinion on why I think a lot of us kind of get into that, because then it's like, oh, if I'm not grinding or if I'm not pushing, then I'm not valuable and I'm not going to have the success. But I think being more aware, having some sort of reflection practice, whether it's like journaling, meditation, or something, allow you to kind of pause or at least interrupt the pattern of your day to day. So you can kind of spend some time looking back on things and being able to like double check and move forward. For example, I'm kind of coming off of a busy sprint season. And a couple of weeks ago, I was essentially waking up at like 3:50 a.m. every day, and I'd have an event or something to go to every day until I'd get home at like 11:30 at night. So I was very short on my sleep. We went out on a Friday for dinner and I came home and I went to sleep and I had nothing to do on Saturday. So I told my girlfriend, Victoria, I was like, I'm just going to stay here sleeping. I literally slept 25 hours from like Friday into Saturday or Friday into Sunday. And I woke up and I was like, I'm still so exhausted. But if I hadn't had this reflection of being like, hey, I've been working really hard lately, like I don't have anything going on. Let me try to re up on the sleep and enjoy this like weekend where I don't have anything that I necessarily need to do.
Yeah, you had a significant sleep debt that you were
Yeah.
trying to make up for there. Wow,
25-hour
that's
nap.
impressive.
Well, it was like ups and downs. That's just what the watch was telling me. So I
Yeah.
definitely woke up, got some food, and then went right back to sleep a few
Yeah.
times.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be starving.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about Prime Performance.
Yeah. So Prime Performance is the coaching that I'm doing now. And it's built off of these 6 principles that I've realized has helped me create success, but then also to reflect and monitor where I'm at on different areas. The 6 principles are all about building intentionality, building resilience, getting clarity and focus, improving efficiency, creating new opportunities, and also like connecting, socializing, and creating influence. And the process itself kind of brings you through all the principles in a strategic manner so that you prepare yourself for the new project, the new sprint season that you've got going on. You can align yourself so that you have your values and you have your reasons on why this is important, and really building this identity around the success that comes from your project or your side hustle or adventure that you're going on. And then also how to connect with more people so you're not doing it by yourself and you're leaning on the support system that you generate, but then also learning how to create new opportunities going forward for yourself and others. So it's like a exponential growth for yourself and everybody around you.
Very cool.
There's two things jumped out at me from what you just said, Rob. The first one was one of your pillars, unintentionality. It's something over even just like the last year I've come to realize being intentional is like secret sauce in everything that you do. Like whether it's your business, whether it's your relationship, if you come at something with some intention, you put some intention behind what you're doing, it completely changes the outcome of what you're doing. Even if you were to go through the same motions, doing it with a higher level of intentionality completely changes the outcome.
And we talk about it all the time in relationships, in marriage, is like, because we see it so often. It's like we're just drifting. We're just going through the motions, and before you know it, you've drifted apart. And if you've just shown up with the intention of, like, early days, a lot of times when we're dating, we show up with a little bit more intention, right? And if we held that intention throughout, we wouldn't drift apart. And it's just, you see it so often. It's true of basically every aspect of your life, every single aspect. So it's really cool.
Yeah, the intentionality is so important. And to take it a step further from there even is to have aligned intention. For example, like I see so many people showing up to different events and different things with an intention, but it might not be totally aligned with what they're trying to be doing. Think of the guy at like networking events who just shows up with like business cards and he's just like hammering them down everybody's throat. You're like, okay, cool. I'll never do business with you. Thanks. But like, you have somebody else who comes and they're genuinely interested in developing a relationship, like getting to know you and your business and like, hey, is there any way that I can kind of help what you're going on? And then from there, you're like, oh yeah, that guy was actually kind of cool. Maybe I will call that guy for some sushi later on, or maybe catch up and see how he's doing with his business and maybe send him a referral or so like that. So I think being intentional is very beneficial, but then aligning it with what you're actually trying to do can make it even bigger of a difference.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I love that example too, because for the longest time I thought I was like the worst networker when I go to things because I'm just not the like rapid fire like shotgun approach. I'm like much more likely to get into into a conversation and like actually talk to someone. And then I'm like, oh, I've spent the whole time talking to two people. I've met like two people at this whole event.
Go deep instead of wide, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the
Yep.
guy that goes in with the gun that shoots cards.
Yeah.
What are you really excited about right now? Like, what are you working on that gets you jazzed? That's like really like, oh, like, let's go. When does this day start again?
Yeah. Well, it would have to be my momentum mastermind that I kind of kicked off. I think you and I have kind of talked about that beforehand. And that's super fun for me because I get an opportunity to continue teaching what I'm going through with all these different principles, but then also connect, share wins, and also struggles too, which I think is a low key superpower. Being
Yeah.
able to share your struggles, being vulnerable, like, yeah, hey, business isn't doing so hot right now. Like, this is what happened. And then being able to lean on other people gives you that support and it gives you the security and you just feel way better leaving each one of those. And it's just like so fun for me. Every week I get jazzed up and excited to prepare for that. And then I'm like so amped that I can't wait to do the follow-up email afterwards and reconnect with new people. It's a lot for me. I love it.
Yeah, it's and we're right there with you because we started a mastermind this year too, and it's such a cool feeling. And community is such a game changer.
It was where I was going. It was my forgotten question. So I'm glad we got here. Carry on.
Community, it's the secret sauce for all of this because it makes it so that you don't feel like you're alone. Like there's other people that are going through something similar. It's not the same, but we're all in this together. And it's a place to ask questions. You create a safe space, and it's so great.
Well, I loved what you said around the community piece, but specifically around bringing the failures and the things that aren't going so well, because that's where the connection really gets built. I think a lot of us really struggle to be that vulnerable because, we don't want to dwell on the negative and we don't want to make it seem like we're not as successful. Like we all want everyone to think we're doing so well in this whole Instagram culture of, what reality is versus what everyone thinks. But when you can actually bring what's really going on with you somewhere where you can feel supportive and can actually get vulnerable and share the stuff that's not going well, that's when everyone else that's in that room can connect with you. Because none of us are perfect. I know my insides. I know all my flaws. I know all my shit. So I know I'm not perfect. And when you show up as perfect, like everything's going well, my marriage is awesome, my business is awesome, my health is awesome. Like when everything's awesome for you, I cannot connect with that because I know everything's not awesome for me all the time. So then you lose. It's great to have community, but if there's community without that level of connection, then there's a big piece missing from that. So I love that space you're creating is allowing for that level of vulnerability because then the members in that community can actually show up for each other and feel connected to each other and supported.
Yeah, so true. And like you said, it doesn't happen until there's some vulnerability and relatability happening there. Because if that's not there, then it's like you're just chasing after this fictitious perfect thing. And we all know that there's no such thing as perfect. It's like you can keep trying, but something's always going to go off and it's always something there. So chasing perfection just leads to a lot of negative things.
Couldn't agree more from two recovering perfectionists.
And we've talked about this in the past around, community being like a game changer from the perspective of it turns decades into days. Like I get to learn from all the people in the room. And that wasn't always something that I understood. I thought that like masterminds and group coaching and having that community aspect would take away from the experience for the individual because they weren't getting that one-on-one time. And I didn't really give enough credit to the amount of learning that they're getting from the other members and the questions that they're hearing from other members who maybe are a year ahead of them or a couple weeks or a couple months, and they haven't considered that question before, or, are going through something that there's a really good chance I'm going to be going through that at some point. And they get to learn that ahead of the time. And so that they can maybe even navigate around that pitfall. It's just such another way to offer to people an opportunity, a path to success.
Yeah. And the community, everything about like just the group setting, it just kind of elevates it up because like whether wins, losses, or just casual, steady weeks, it's all good to work together and check in even with each other.
Yeah, 100%. Rob, what's one gold nugget you'll leave for everybody? Like boil one of your juicy pieces down for everybody. One gold nugget for the listeners.
Yeah, I think kind of go back to probably nothing new to your guys' listeners and such, but on connecting a little bit deeper, like showing up, actually caring for the other person and thinking a little bit about them, like putting yourself in somebody else's shoes for a second and showing up prepared for whatever that interaction is, whether that is a business thing or that's just a networking or client session. Put yourself in their shoes and see what their expectations might be for the successful version of the interaction you're about to happen.
It's so funny. It's basically empathy.
Yeah.
You just basically said empathy. And I don't know how many times we've talked about empathy and how important it is to relationships, and like it's an absolute superpower. So thank you for confirming it, because sometimes
validation's always nice.
And yeah, sometimes people don't trust their own backyard. They you need other people to reinforce the concept. But yeah, it's empathy is an absolute game changer. It's a superpower in relationships, and that's a great gold nugget.
So, Rob, how can everybody get a hold of you? They're like, side hustle. Yeah, sounds good. I want to lean into this.
High performance. I need that. I need Rob's. I need the grit. I need the hard work. How do I get in touch with Rob?
Yeah, the easiest place to kind of find me is on social media, at Rob Tracz on Instagram and LinkedIn, and probably the best places to find me. Last name is little tough. It's TRAC as in cat and Z as in zebra. And over on my podcast too, Surviving the Side Hustle. And you can find that at survivingthesidehustle.com. And I've also created a little 5 tips of success for side hustlers. So if anybody's interested in snagging that, you can get that just over at survivingthesidehustle.com/5 keys.
Awesome. We'll add all of those to the show notes so everyone can get them super easily. And
I just learned how to pronounce your last name.
Shit.
So
sorry about that.
Apologies for mispronouncing that.
We'll get it right.
But we'll get that in the intro.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Like I went most of my life not even understanding how to say it. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if that's really how. My dad never gave me a straight answer on how to say it. And then unfortunately, he passed away before revealing the secret to me. And everybody else in my family was just like, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, all right, that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, we're going to consider you the authority on how to pronounce your last name. So
yep.
Tracy it is. Tracy?
Yeah.
Tracy it is. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. We so appreciate you being here. This was so much fun.
Oh, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Road of Life podcast. Remember, your business will only grow as strong as your marriage does.
So what's one action you're going to take this week to put something you learned in this episode into practice? Because we love a good chit chat as much as the next person does. But without action, stay where you are.
If you want to turn your marriage into the engine that drives your business forward, instead of the brakes keeping it stuck, book a free marriage and business strategy session with us at 200percentmarriage.com/strategy call.
We'll see you next week.